Compost Experience team here on the Seattle campus for Expedia Group, and happy Earth Month to everyone. And today we are so excited to be talking to our Master Gardener for Expedia Group. This is Mr. Jeff Daley. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me.
We are so excited to talk to you today. So as you know, we sourced some questions from our Slack channel from some of our Expedians about gardening, landscaping, and everything that you're an expert on. But first we want to kind of get to know you a little bit. So go ahead and tell us about how you came to be at Expedia Group and what you do here on campus.
Well, okay, thank you so much for the invitation. And I'm excited to be able to share some things with you about horticulture and gardening. I came to Expedia last October in the fall. And as the moment I stepped on campus, I could see that the landscape definitely was put together with intention. I'll just share a little bit about myself. I was 1 month shy of 30 years of being the horticulturalist and arborist at Seattle Pacific University. And the timing was just right for me to make a change. My 3 sons had graduated from the university. Like I said earlier, the moment I stepped on this campus here at Expedia Group, I realized that this was something special. And I wanted to be a part of it.
Now, have I heard that you were also an award-winning winemaker?
Well, you know, everybody has a hobby, right? And the horticulturalist in me was excited to learn that viticulture and horticulture really go hand in hand. There's a French word called terroir, and that is all-encompassing in viticulture. It's the soil, the study of the vines, the different varieties of the wine grapes, and it all plays together in a role to bring you from vine to the bottom. And you know, the exciting thing is you can go to Argentina and have a beautiful Malbec, or you can go to France and have a Burgundy, or Italy, Tuscany, California, Napa Valley, Sonoma, or here in Washington State, which we are coming on strong with our wine production. In that bottle is the terroir, is the growing of that particular grape that makes it so special. So as you travel to other countries and you enjoy the culture and their wines and their culinary arts and everything that is involved in culture, that is important for us. And it's an experience that you don't want to miss out, because life is short and you need to have those treasured moments along the way. It brings you joy, and it just makes you a better person.
Well, I would love to talk about wine all day, but we do have some questions that we sourced from our Expedians, like we said, and we are so excited to get your input on those. So our first question comes from Emma, and she says, "Hey Jeff, what would you say is the ideal watering amount for an orchid? P.S. Big fan."
Okay, Emma, I'm going to tell you something. The difficult problem about an orchid is to get it to the point where it will rebloom. Orchids do not grow in soil. They grow mostly in loose potting mediums like bark and things like that. They grow on like the trunks of trees, and it's just not easy to get orchids to rebloom. So Emma, if you keep trying, let me know how you've reached your success, okay? Because unfortunately, I can't give you much confidence in getting your orchids to rebloom.
So that actually transitions well into my next question. We have one from Ashley, and she says, "What is the best plant to easily take care of for someone who does not have a green thumb?" So maybe not leaning into those orchids, but what would you recommend?
Well, Ashley, that's a really good question. What we need to know first is, where do you want to plant your plant? Is it an indoor plant, like a house plant? Do you live in an apartment or a condo? Is it on a deck? Is it a container garden? Because each plant has its own cultural requirement that you need to consider when you choose your plant. Maybe you've heard it said, right plant, right place.
So my question on here was, what are some good apartment plants? Because I live in an apartment, I'm just getting into being a plant mom, and I would love to know what your recommendations are for me who doesn't have a yard.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm looking at one right there. The mother-in-law's tongue. Ah! I don't know why they call it that, but that's a great plant, and it can grow in just shady locations. Pothos is another good one. Spathiphyllum is a really good one. One of my favorites is Anthurium. They grow a lot of those in Hawaii. They have those red big spaths with the big, oh, I love those plants. One of the most important things, though, on houseplants Don't overwater.
We have another question about a specific plant. So this one's from Andrea, and she says, when should I prune my lilacs? Any recommendations on how to grow grass where it doesn't get much sun or is pretty wet?
Okay, so that's two questions.
Two questions, I guess, yeah.
Well, Andrea, let me talk to you about your lilacs. I love lilacs. I love the fragrance. And over in Spokane, they have the Lilac Festival and the Lilac Parade. The rule of thumb is that you want to prune them after they flower, because next year's flower is going to come on the new wood. That will give the plant enough time to produce the woody stems and the buds for next year. And then what was the second question regarding grasses?
Any recommendations on how to grow grass where it doesn't get much sun or is pretty wet?
In the Pacific Northwest, the best type of lawn seed to purchase in a sunny area would be perennial rye. In shady locations, the best seed to purchase would be the fescues. So if you have a combination of both, perhaps a mixture of perennial ryegrass and fescue seeds. So look for something that has fescues in it, okay? And then sprinkle that out there. Be generous, and put a little peat moss on the top to give it a beautiful medium so that the radical root can spring out of the husk and knit itself to the dirt and to the peat moss that's there. And then it's going to take off.
So we've talked a little bit about how we have different types of grasses here in the Pacific Northwest as compared to the rest of the country. Our next question kind of ties into that as well. So this one comes from Curran, and he says, I would love some plant recommendations for preferably native Pacific Northwest shade-tolerant perennials. So what do you have to offer there?
Well, Curran, I'm telling you, that's a great question. Gardening in the shade is not easy. So let me just hit on a few plants that perhaps you will enjoy. Don't forget the ferns. Ferns are native in our area, and they love the shade. So all of the different ferns are going to work in shaded areas. In landscape design, when you put together plants in a shaded area, it's really nice to have variegated leaf foliage or lighter colored flowers to help illuminate a dark area. So there are some really fun variegated plants that have nice textured foliage that you can use. They're not native, but you need to have a few variegated plants. So Aucuba japonica would be a really good one. It's a green leaf that looks like somebody took yellow house paint and just splattered it on the leaf. It's got blotches of yellow all over the leaf, and it just pops. And then, of course, as you go from the spring into the summer, don't forget the hostas, the plantain lily. So look for Japanese forest grass, variegated hostas, Aucuba japonica. Put in some native ferns. That would be my suggestion in a shaded garden.
All right, so I have a few questions about compost. So let's kind of shift gears here a little bit. So our first question is also from Curran, who says, any composting tips would be great, specifically how to get a nice, dry, loose compost. My tumbler at home gives me big, moist clumps, which is not so great.
Well, compost is a product that has been broken down. So that could be a combination of the dry leaves, lawn clippings, wood chips, but it's gone through a process which oftentimes takes a couple years to break down, and it decomposes the plant material. And then you've got this organic, beautiful, rich soil. Gardeners would call it black gold. So in amending your soil, you want to have something that's more organic, but you don't want to make it too organic, because remember, organic material is going to help you retain moisture. So if you have a lot of organic material and then you water, then that might create more moisture problems for you. So you need to have a sandy, loamy soil mixed in with your compost to give you that nice balance. Curran, I hope that answers your question. Keep composting.
All right, next up we have one from Annie, who says, what are some tips and tricks in maintaining an outdoor herb garden? Any varieties that grow well in our area?
Annie, that's a great question. We grow herbs at our house as well. In fact, my wife loves gin and tonics, and she likes to put fresh mint leaves in her gin and tonics. If you're going to grow herbs, you definitely need to have a space for them. Now, you can also use herbs beautifully presented in a container garden. You don't necessarily need to grow your herbs by themselves. You can also supplement your container gardens with flowers with a few herbs tucked in.
All right, our last question here comes from Ricky, who says, I noticed that you revamped the gardens between rock and meadow on campus with new dirt, and it looks awesome. How often do you add new dirt to these gardens?
Ricky, that's another great question. In fact, we're sitting here on the sky bridge between the meadow garden and the rock garden. We applied the compost on the top of this just a month ago. And I'm thinking we probably might not want to do it again next year. So it all depends on your garden. So you really have to monitor the amount of product that you're going to put in your garden.
Well, that is all the questions that we have for today. So thank you so much for joining us again. I know that I learned a lot, so hopefully our Expedians did as well.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me to come and share my excitement about being here on the Expedia Group campus. And I am so excited when all the employees are able to come back and join us. If any of you have any gardening questions, I would be more than happy to be a resource for you. And I would also love to give you a personal tour of our campus here at Expedia Group. This is a beautiful campus that we have to enjoy, and I would love to be able to share that with you, and you can experience why I'm so excited about the campus.
Well, thank you so much again for joining us, and thank you all of our Expedians who submitted questions. Thank you for watching, and from all of us here at Seattle campus, happy Earth Month.